The continent of Orakia is a vast land divided into 5 nations, but about 50 years ago, the Toskabok Empire succeeds in unifying the entire continent under its rule. Humans, elves, beastfolk, dwarves, and halflings are among the many diverse races that inhabit this continent. Orakia is also home to countless creatures harmful to these races, creatures known collectively as monsters. The cities are protected by the divine power of the goddess of this world through the barrier against monsters, which ensures the inhabitants' safety. However, villages and towns outside the reach of the barrier are left exposed to the constant threat of monster attacks. To defend these places, those blessed by the goddess and willing to fight against these creatures are known as adventurers. As adventurers level up, they enhance their stats and gain the power needed to face the monsters. By learning a variety of spells and skills, they fight for the sake of this world and in service of the goddess, which is the true purpose of an adventurer. At the beginning of the episode, several adventurers are shown battling monsters. We also see a beautiful girl dressed in a rabbit costume pounding rice to make ice cakes. The shoddy appears tired and asks the woman standing nearby, named Leo, for help, but Leo refuses, saying she is already exhausted. The next moment, a clumsy adventurer named Tint asks Leo to hold Ria's healing orbs for a while, but Leo becomes irritated, saying she will not take orders from anyone, and tells Tint to hold them himself since he is useless. Tint protests, saying the healing magic will affect him if he does that, but Leo only mocks him again, calling him useless. Then Leo grabs the bag from Tint, smirks, and using her telekinesis skill, hurls the healing orbs toward the adventurers fighting the monsters. One of the adventurers, Trisso, asks Leo for an orb as well, but Leo dismissively says he is too small and it is hard to aim at him. Acting arrogantly, Leo completely ignores Trisso and turns instead toward a handsome adventurer named Savant, cheering him on like his biggest admirer. In the next moment, Savant charges into the battlefield, immediately beating the life out of every monster in his way. Moments later, all the monsters are lying on the ground, defeated. Savant then targets the strongest monster among them, leaping forward at blinding speed and tearing a massive hole through the creature's torso. Standing tall and calm like a true badass, Savant watches as the monster collapses to the ground. Tint is left utterly shocked at Savant's overwhelming power. Just as Tint is impressed, the supposedly defeated monster begins to move again, trying to stand up. Tint cannot believe the monster has survived such an attack. He knows that Savant's ability, Blowin' in the wind, uses the power of wind to accelerate his body to superhuman speeds, and then forcibly stops him at a predetermined point. The ability's side effect leaves Savant unable to move for a short time. As a countermeasure, Blowin' in the wind generates a blast of wind around Savant at the moment he stops, launching surrounding enemies away. In other words, if an enemy can withstand that gust of wind, they can strike Savant while he is vulnerable. Seeing the monster charge straight towards Savant, Tint makes the decision to intervene. He raises his shield and tries to block the monster's punch, but ends up taking the full impact and is launched into the air. The next instant, both Tint and the monster are on the ground. Tint looks at Savant, asking if he is unharmed. Shockingly, Savant, instead of showing gratitude, breaks Tint's shield into pieces. This action shatters Tint's heart since the shield is a precious gift from his father. To make matters worse, Savant mocks him, saying it is good to finally be rid of the shield. Savant then makes a cruel announcement, declaring that Tint is banished from the party for disobeying orders. Savant explains that Tint had been told to act as a shield for Leonore and Ria, but Tint argues that he thought Savant was in danger. Savant silences him, saying his magic is not something to be underestimated, and that he could have easily dodged the monster's attack, even without Tint's interference. As Savant continues to scold Tint for being careless and endangering others, Tint tries to apologize, promising he will be more careful next time, but Savant coldly tells him he is out of the party. Trisso joins in with a sinister grin, saying Tint should leave as soon as possible. Completely confused, Tint questions Savant's decision. Savant tells him that their team has received an invitation from the leader of the Garden of Diversity, Saffron. Tint's eyes widen in shock at the news. He is well aware that the Garden of Diversity is one of the adventurer parties, recognized by the Adventurer Guild as a Class S party. The party gathers members of various races, featuring both famous adventurers and promising young talents. Among its most notable members is Aitana, the daughter of the legendary hero Bernhardt, known as one of the Daughters of the Hero. Heartbroken, Tint listens as Savant tells him how incredible it is to have such an opportunity, but without Tint in the group, Tint cannot believe that the leader of the Garden of Diversity does not want him in the team. Savant cruelly says it is because no matter how many battles Tint fights, he never improves his pathetic stats. As everyone turns to leave, they mock Tint, calling him a level 0 adventurer who does not deserve to be on the team. The scene then shifts to the city of Lygia, in its poor district, where Tint is seen walking through the streets, trembling and weak, searching for a healer. However, he has no money, and since he has been expelled from the party, his former teammates refuse to heal him with magic. Tint accepts the bitter reality. He has nothing of value, and his daily life is becoming unbearable. He knows he has to start working immediately, but he does not know whether he should try being an adventurer again. Tint curses himself for still being level 0 after 3 years of adventuring. He has been given the nickname God Enemy, and nearly every adventurer in his guild knows about him. Through the ceremonial ritual of the floral crown conducted by the Adventurer Guild, he has received the leveling blessing from their mother, the goddess Esther. Thanks to this blessing, humans are able to grow stronger and fight against monsters. But for some mysterious reason, no matter how many monsters Tint fights, he never gains experience and remains at level 0. It is as though the goddess Esther has abandoned him. The nickname, God Enemy, suits him all too well. The Adventurer Guild is displeased that a level 0 adventurer is still taking on solo quests and might soon recommend his retirement. Yet Tint is unwilling to give up, even as he believes that the goddess no longer loves him. When he finally returns home, he opens the door with the intention of getting some rest and deciding what to do with the rest of his life afterward. But as he enters, he finds a beautiful woman sitting before him. It is none other than the goddess herself, and Tint's life is about to change forever. Tint cannot believe his eyes and immediately starts thinking about different things. He knows that he is considered an enemy of the gods, and since they despise him for not having leveled up in a long time, he believes Esther has appeared to judge him. He thinks that Esther is angry and is going to kill him this time. However, Tint thinks that if Esther is going to kill him, it would not be so bad, as his miserable life would finally end once and for all. Just then, to his surprise, Esther kneels in front of him and begins begging for forgiveness instead. Tint loses his mind at the sight of Esther kneeling before him. He hurriedly tries to tell her to stop and get up, but Esther begins to cry, saying she made a huge mistake and needs to ask for his forgiveness. Tint remains confused and says that he does not understand what is happening. He tells Esther to at least raise her face and explain to him instead of simply crying. Finally, Esther stops crying and agrees with Tint. She explains that, as a goddess, she has the responsibility of running the entire world. Tint is surprised once again. Esther continues, saying she also has the responsibility of blessing adventurers when they reach the age of 13, and that when Tint turned 13, she cast a blessing upon him as well. Tint says yes. He remembers that, but Esther says something shocking. She adds that there seems to be a problem. The problem is that the blessing cast on Tint does not seem to work for some reason. Tint is stunned, but Esther explains that this is the only reason why Tint has not been able to level up for the past 3 years. Once again, Esther kneels before him with tears in her eyes and starts begging for forgiveness, making him nervous. Tint, however, does not seem to care much about this. He tells her to stop crying and asks if it is not true that she or the other gods hate him, to which Esther replies no. She says she knows how much Tint has suffered over the past 3 years and that she would not mind if he is unwilling to forgive her. Tint, being soft-hearted, forgives Esther with a smile. He says he thinks it would be rude not to forgive her, especially after she came to apologize in person. Esther seems a little surprised, looks up at Tint, and he apologizes for being bold enough to say such a thing. Suddenly, Esther jumps on him and hugs him, saying she is thankful. It is the first time she has ever been forgiven. Even though Esther is grateful, she says she cannot leave just like that. Tint asks if he did something wrong, but she says it is quite the opposite. Esther says she knows Tint has been under a lot of pressure recently because he has been unable to level up. She assures him that she will make sure he levels up correctly this time and promises to bless him again. Tint is surprised. Esther tells him that he is now able to level up and adds that since that alone would not be enough, she will also give him 100 times the experience he should have gained over the past 3 years. Tint is shocked to hear this. Esther, thinking Tint finds it insufficient, offers to make it 1,000 times, but Tint immediately bows and says he accepts the 100 times level up. Esther smiles nervously and asks if Tint could hug her. As Tint stares at her chest while hesitating, Esther quickly explains that it is important for him to hug her if he wants to level up, otherwise things will stay the same. She clarifies that she is not trying to sexually harass him, and Tint, still shocked, agrees with her. After they both agree, they step closer and hug each other. Tint feels awkward as he can feel her body pressing against him. Esther closes her eyes and suddenly Tint hears a strange sound. He remembers that upon leveling up, one hears a strange chime. He cannot believe he has leveled up, and in no time, he advances to level 3. Things do not stop there. He keeps leveling up continuously, and he starts thinking he might go crazy if this continues. In the next scene, Tint wakes up in his bed with a slight headache. He remembers Esther being in his room, and as he decides to get some water, his foot touches someone's face. He is shocked to see that it is Esther. Esther wakes up with a smile. She is sleeping on the ground, and as she gets up, she says she will get back to work immediately. Tint apologizes for stepping on her face, but she says it is not a big deal for her to sleep on the ground. Esther smiles and says she sometimes falls asleep while working, after which she gets awakened by being kicked, and those who kick her usually apologize for stepping on her. This, she says, makes her think she is not doing her job well enough. Esther says she did not know Tint had fainted while she continued sending him experience points. She then asks Tint to check his stats to confirm if he has received the experience. As Tint opens his stat book, he recalls how it is a special book given to blessed adventurers who pass the ritual of the floral crown. The book contains details about Tint's skills. He opens the book and finds out that his level is already above 2000. Seeing this, his eyes widen in shock once again, while Esther smirks at him. Tint cannot believe that his current level is 2198. He knows that the all-time hero was at the 300th level, and that 4-digit levels are considered impossible. He finds the numbers on his status window unreal, as it seems that he alone is strong enough to defeat even high-level demons. Esther is also happy to see his stats while he remains in shock. Tint asks Esther if she does not think it is strange that his stats are so high. He says that the strongest person in his group, Savant, was only at the 40th level, and looking at his own stats, he finds them completely abnormal. Esther explains to him that the higher one's level is, the more experience points they need to level up, which is why advancing to the next level becomes harder and harder. However, Tint's case is different, as he only needs 100 experience points to level up. This means that Tint will jump to the next level the moment he gains 100 experience points. She adds that all the experience Tint has earned over the past 3 years would normally get him to level 20, which means he is supposed to be at level 2000 Tullus if his stats are multiplied by 100 times. Listening to this, Tint finally realizes what is happening. All of a sudden, he falls to his knees and starts thanking Esther for all of this. Esther says that it all started with her mistake, but Tint says that she can never be wrong. Esther smiles and thanks Tint for his kind words. She stays silent, making Tint wonder why she is not leaving. Tint thought that Esther would leave the moment he showed her his stats, as he wanted to think about them alone for a while. Suddenly, Esther's stomach makes a strange noise, and she apologizes, saying she has not eaten anything since yesterday. Tint asks her what she last ate, and she thinks for a moment before saying she does not know what it was, only that it was something green that grew from the ground. Tint is surprised to hear this and thinks that Esther had eaten herbs, which makes him believe she does not live a very good life. Tint thinks that the herbs in heaven must be more delicious than those in the human realm, and believes that Esther would not enjoy breakfast in the human realm either. Nevertheless, he offers to make breakfast for her, thinking she would refuse, but to his surprise, she agrees with a bright smile. Hearing such a positive response, Tint is a little shocked. In the next scene, he is in the kitchen preparing something for Esther. Since he does not have many ingredients and does not want to make her wait, he makes a sandwich. As he tries to cut it in half, he realizes that his knife has a dull blade. Because of the dull blade, Tint applies more pressure on the sandwich, and due to his superhuman strength, he ends up shattering the knife into pieces, with the blade flying off. Realizing just how strong he has become, Tint becomes terrified and starts shaking. He cannot believe that he accidentally manifested the power he now holds and becomes afraid of himself, thinking he is a monster with immense power. In the next scene, Tint comes out of the kitchen with the sandwich. He brings the plate to Esther, places it on the table, and apologizes for being so clumsy. Tint explains that he used a knife that was nearly broken and apologizes for bringing something to eat that he feels is unworthy of a goddess. To his surprise, Esther becomes emotional. She takes a bite of the sandwich and cries like a baby at how good it tastes. After finishing the meal, she thanks Tint, saying it was so good she ate it all. Tint says it is fine, as he is not very hungry anyway. Esther then asks him what he plans to do next, and he thinks to himself that he will think about it once again the next day. Tint wants to get used to his current powers and says he might accept the quest for the Goblin Forest and become a solo adventurer. Listening to his plans, Esther agrees, saying it sounds good and that she likes the idea as well. However, since Esther knows Tint has to get used to his new form, she makes 2 requests. For the first request, she asks Tint to hide his true strength. She says that those who make mistakes in her company usually end up covering them up, which means that if she were to tell her seniors about Tint, they would simply say that there was never anyone with that name. Tint finally starts to grasp the situation. Esther explains that she is not allowed to descend from heaven or disclose her identity. So if it is revealed that she gave Tint 100 times more experience points, she will get fired. She says that her seniors would notice if Tint suddenly became super strong overnight. For this reason, Esther wants Tint to act as if he grew stronger gradually. Tint agrees, knowing that it is impossible for a human to gain so much strength in such a short time. Then Esther makes her second request. She asks to join Tint on his goblin quest. She says she fears Tint might be in danger if he does not get used to his current state, and that she will be able to hold him back if he loses control. Tint says he does not want to waste her time, but Esther assures him it is not a problem, as she has taken a day off to apologize to him. Not just a day, Esther has taken 3 weeks off after working for more than 100 years. Suddenly, she realizes she is acting too clingy and quickly apologizes, saying she has never been treated this well. Tint says it is all right and tells her that she is really beautiful, which surprises her a little. He adds that since he could immediately tell she was a goddess, it would cause a commotion if Esther were to walk outside like a normal person. Esther agrees and suddenly pulls out a mobile phone, saying she will drop her divinity to 0. Tint is shocked, staring at her as the pressure he once felt from her completely vanishes. She no longer looks like a goddess, and for some reason, he feels drawn to her. Then Esther makes another request. She says she wants to stay with Tint for a while, and as soon as he agrees, she immediately asks him to take care of her. The next scene takes us to the Adventurer Guild, where Tint walks in with Esther by his side, and surprisingly, they are both noticed by the ugly midget, Trisso. Tint has bought a cloak for Esther to help her hide her identity, and since he does not want to disappoint her by making mistakes during his quest, he decides to stay focused. The scene shifts to the guild, where we see Esther fascinated by the guild's beauty, while Tint thinks to himself that Esther should not be in such a place. All of a sudden, everyone starts staring at them intently with strange gazes. Soon enough, Trisso is seen standing in front of Tint, mocking him by saying that Tint did not even take any time before joining another adventurer. While Trisso continues to taunt him, Tint realizes that Trisso had been gossiping about him to the others. Tint asks Trisso if he is not going on any missions, to which Trisso replies that he is not, saying that Savant is on a date with Savant so he has an off day. Trisso then approaches Esther, telling her not to join Tint as he is known as the enemy of the god, which would make even the goddess hate her. If Trisso knew who he was talking to, he would faint. His words make Esther nervous and guilty as well. Tint cannot just stand there and let this go. So he tells Trisso that the woman is not an adventurer and that he does not want to be bothered since he has come for a quest. Suddenly, all the adventurers start laughing at Tint for looking for a quest. Trisso laughs like a maniac, saying he thought Tint had come to announce his retirement. Everyone keeps laughing at Tint for being so bold, but he walks through them toward the notice board, picks up a quest, and places it on the reception desk, saying he wants to accept it. The cute receptionist apologizes for what happened to Tint the previous day, but Tint says it does not affect him, and that he would like to take a solo quest. The lady is quite shocked to hear that Tint wants to take a solo quest and asks if he is sure about that, or if he has a partner with him. Tint knows that Esther is the mother of all adventurers, and that it would not be good for her position if he chose her as his partner. Tint confirms that he wants to take a solo quest, but the lady tells him that since his level is too low, he simply cannot take on a solo quest, not even one about killing goblins. Tint might be level 0, but he still has confidence in himself, which is why he believes that he can at least go to the Goblin Forest to dismember them and earn some money. The receptionist then says that she has a proposal for Tint, explaining that she has a friend who runs a women's entertainment business and thinks Tint would be perfect for that job. She tells him to go and give an interview, but hearing such an absurd thing makes Tint shocked and embarrassed. He knows that the adult industry is quite popular in his city and that he could earn a lot with his good looks. However, Tint is unwilling to do such an immoral thing and immediately refuses, but pointing at his lower body, the receptionist says that thing could earn him a lot of money. Tint feels bad for Esther to hear such degrading words, and he notices Esther staring between his legs. At that very moment, Trisso steps forward, saying Tint is not so bad that he should be denied a solo quest. The receptionist argues that Tint has a great talent for being a gigolo, and even Trisso becomes shocked to hear her. As she insists that she will not let Tint take a solo quest, Trisso says that he will go with him. Hearing this, the receptionist approves Tint's mission request. In the next scene, Esther and Tint are seen walking through the woods. Tint recalls thanking Trisso for his help and telling him not to follow him into the forest. He remembers how Trisso immediately refused, and now that he thinks about it, he believes that with the kind of person Trisso is, he must be scared of getting close to anyone. As they continue to walk, Tint notices that Esther is getting uncomfortable, so he tries to change the topic by praising the beauty of the forest. He thanks Esther for making the forest so beautiful and even thanks her for creating the protective barrier against monsters that keeps humanity safer from them. That was hundreds of years ago, when Goddess Esther established a protective field against monsters in the continent's major cities. Since then, those major cities have never suffered monster invasions. That powerful protection field also affects the areas surrounding the main cities. It seems that stronger monsters are uncomfortable with the field, so the closer one is to the capital city, the weaker the monsters that live there. Therefore, even though the Goblin Forest is very close to the adventurer's city, Opija, it still has a good environment for monsters. As expected, there are only goblins and weak-rank monsters there. This allows lower-level adventurers to gain experience and money in relative safety. Even so, for someone like Tint, who is at level 0, it remains a very dangerous place, especially when alone. Listening to Tint's words, Esther says that at that time, the demons were attacking humanity, which is why she took that step. Tint says that it is because of her that they now have safe lives, but Esther tells him not to thank her, as she cannot take her eyes off the system of the field, which is quite complicated. Esther says that she is the one who made the world, so she is responsible for managing it as well, which is why she has not had any good sleep since then. Tint thinks he has ruined Esther's mood and starts wishing that a dragon or a goblin would appear. The next second, a goblin appears from behind the bushes. As the goblin walks out, it is revealed that it is carrying an axe. Tint tells Esther to step back as armed goblins are a rare phenomenon, but seeing the goblin naked from head to toe shocks Esther, who asks why that is so. Tint is a little surprised at her reaction and thinks that the receptionist at the guild has influenced her. He explains that since it is a monster, it is normal for it to be naked. Esther is not happy to hear this and starts questioning the operations of the monster development department, and as she continues to panic, she becomes scared that she will be raped. Esther grabs Tint's arm, begging him to save her, and in the next moment, the goblin starts advancing toward them. Seeing this, Tint immediately tells her to step back, and as the goblin closes the distance, it swings its axe to attack, but Tint dodges effortlessly. Seizing this opportunity, Tint decides to test himself, wanting to crush the goblin's brain. In the next moment, he swings his sword and cuts the pathetic goblin in half. As the goblin falls on the ground, Tint looks back and is shocked to see Esther standing with a horrified expression as if she has seen too much. Tint immediately realizes that he has made a huge mistake by letting Esther witness such a horrific scene and soon notices that her back is also splattered with blood. As if this were not enough, another trauma strikes the goddess as she spots 3 more goblins, naked from head to toe, advancing toward her. Seeing these goblins, Esther panics and the situation becomes even more tense and awkward. She screams in fear, and upon seeing this, Tint fires an energy beam from his finger that kills 2 goblins at once. Seeing this, Tint becomes surprised, realizing that he is finally starting to get a hold of this terrifying power, and he also understands that this happened only when 2 goblins appeared together. This means that Tint's skills as well as his learning capabilities are increasing at a rapid pace. He starts to worry about the health of the goddess. He turns around to say that they should wrap it up and leave, but as he turns back, he finds Esther standing in front of a tree. It turns out that the goddess is terrified at the sight of bloodstains on the trunk of the tree in front of her. She becomes extremely shocked and starts to panic. as she seems to be deeply scared by the sight of the blood. Esther touches the blood without realizing what it is, but as some of it gets on her palm, she takes a close look and suddenly starts to cry like a little child, thinking that she is bleeding and is going to die soon. Esther begins crying for her life while looking at her own hand, and Tint starts to wonder if she is like a normal human being, as she genuinely fears she is going to bleed to death while he tries his best to calm her down. However, Esther continues to scream and cry, saying that she does not have any experience with a man. Tint tells her to calm down, explaining that it is the goblin's blood, not hers, and she then tells him that her health results are not that good and that it is a miracle she has survived this long. Suddenly, Tint thinks of an idea, smiling as he says they can go back since he has gained control of his power. Esther says it is a relief to see the goblin die. She then says that she has a request and hopes Tint will be able to fulfill it. Esther repeats that she has no experience with men, but this time, she makes a sad face. Tint says he believes it is normal for a goddess to be pure, but to his surprise, Esther says that she is a female after all and wants to bloom like a woman. As Esther pulls out her mobile phone, she asks Tint to show her his little buddy, but upon hearing her words, he panics, loses his mind, and says there is no need to do that nonsense. Esther becomes annoyed, regains her divinity, takes back her goddess form, and orders Tint to do as she wishes. As Esther announces her command, Tint loses control of his body, which begins to move on its own, and he becomes terrified. Suddenly, Esther's eyes start to shine, and upon seeing this, Tint starts asking the other gods for help and protection. Tint is completely shocked, and so is Esther, but for a different reason. Esther looks at Tint's thing and becomes amazed to see its size. She thinks it is some kind of trick and asks why it is so big. Tint, feeling deeply embarrassed, tells her that it is normal and not that big, but as she insists that it is way too big for her and that it cannot even fit inside her, he tells her not to talk such nonsense. Esther does not stop there. She becomes freaky and dirty, saying that she knows it becomes even bigger when it awakens, and all of a sudden, it actually does awaken, which sends the goddess into an unconscious state. As Esther falls to the ground, Tint realizes that he has sent away the goddess with his manhood. He decides not to regret anything. The scene then shifts to the guild, where we see Tint being praised for killing 50 goblins. After goddess Esther fainted, goblins came in, drawn by the smell of blood, so Tint ended up exterminating more than planned. He brought back some valuable materials such as claws, which are expensive among goblin materials, along with some precious metals that he probably recovered from adventurers. With the rewards from the goblin extermination and the materials, he will not have any financial problems for a while. If the quest paper is automatically attached to the Book of Blessings when the mission is approved, he can check the quest details at any time, and the number of exterminations is calculated automatically, so it is impossible to lie about how many goblins he has exterminated. Still, it is surprising that he, who was low level until yesterday, has exterminated goblins, and it is astonishing that a normal adventurer has managed to exterminate 50 goblins. It is an incredibly convenient feature, but this time, it proves to be slightly annoying. The receptionist smiles and says that Tint will not become a gigolo anymore and asks him about his companion, Esther. Since Tint cannot tell anyone how Esther fainted after looking at his manhood, he tells the receptionist that she fainted during combat, which is why he took her home. Tint worries for Esther a little, thinking he should not have left her alone, but also knowing it was necessary. He believes that his presence should be enough to prove that he killed around 50 goblins, but the receptionist still appears doubtful. Trisso joins them, stealing the credit by claiming that he was the one who killed the goblins, and as Tint tries to send him away, Trisso taunts him for being a level 0 who cannot even kill a single goblin, let alone 50. Tint says that during the fight, a huge rock happened to kill goblins. Hearing this, Trisso immediately claims that this means Tint did not use his own skill, which makes him a fraud who is simply stealing the reward. Things begin to heat up as Trisso loses his composure, saying that if it were not for him, Tint would not have received the reward, to which Tint replies by suggesting they split it in half. Trisso says that Tint is a god's enemy, so the goddess will not be happy if Tint makes money, which is why he thinks he himself should have all the reward, but Tint simply calls him jealous and lazy. Hearing this, the angry midget immediately challenges Tint to a knife-throwing duel. Pointing at a dartboard, Trisso says they will throw knives at that board and compete for the highest points. Tint knows that Trisso is skilled at throwing knives, which is why he is challenging him to such a competition. Tint stays hesitant at first, but Trisso mocks him, saying he is already afraid. Having no other choice, Tint finally accepts the duel. Each one of them gets 5 throws, and then they will add the points of each throw to determine the winner. As both Tint and Trisso prepare to start the match, people begin placing bets on them. Most people place their bets on Trisso, while Tint leans toward the receptionist and asks her to place a bet on him, since she has treated him well, and he wants her to make some money as well. The next moment, standing in front of the board, Tint thinks to himself that he does not know much about this game. He knows that his points can either double or triple if he hits the right spot, but at the same time, he fears that he might end up miscalculating his own points, which would be a loss for him. However, he decides not to stand out with his skills and seems quite confident that he will be the winner. The next scene takes us to Trisso's table, where we see him drinking, angrily expressing how he lost to Tint and fearing that Tint will now go around telling other adventurers about him. He says that Tint has stolen the reward that should have been his. The female dwarf by his side smiles, saying she thinks Tint deserved that reward as she remembers him going on the quest all by himself while Trisso did not even bother leaving the guild. She calls Tint a talented person, but Trisso does not like this and questions Tint and his skills. The female replies that Tint is a god adventurer for being at level 0 and killing 50 goblins. Trisso shrugs it off, saying Tint did not do it by himself, but the female says she still finds it impressive for someone to make use of their brain. Suddenly, someone beside Trisso asks if he is sure Tint is level 0, and with confidence, Trisso says yes. However, the person says that Tint's throws during the duel were pretty unusual. The person says that when Trisso scored 16 on doubles, Tint scored 18 and then 20. When Trisso scored 17 on singles, Tint scored 20. Whenever Trisso hit a blue point, Tint hit one too. Tint consistently outperformed Trisso every single time. The man asks Trisso if he is really sure that kid is level 0. Trisso replies that if Tint's throws seem divine, he could understand the doubt, but he is certain Tint is truly level 0. He adds that this victory was a gift from goddess Esther, who showed compassion for Tint after he was expelled from the group and granted him victory in the end. Trisso thinks to himself that this was a terrible moment for divine interference. In the next scene, we see Esther enjoying a delicious meal with Tint, smiling like a child with candy as she thanks Tint for the meal, while Tint feels a little nervous remembering how Esther fainted earlier, and what she was trying to do to him in the forest, which made her apologize to him on her knees. Tint managed to get all the reward from the quest, and he thinks things have gone really well for him on his first day. Esther asks if it is safe for her to drink alcohol, and Tint smiles, saying she can have as much as she wants. As Esther starts to enjoy her drink, Tint thinks it is a good way to make her forget what happened earlier. However, immediately after drinking, Esther is seen throwing up in the corner, while Tint thinks to himself that it was a bad idea. Tint tells her to let it all out, thinking this will also help her forget about what happened earlier. Strangely, they notice a pointy-eared woman staring at both of them so intensely, as if Tint owes her some money. We see a pointy-eared girl fighting some monsters on the front line, bringing them down as it is her responsibility. Her name is Etana, and she fights monsters. Near the town stands the temple of the monkey god. In the Garden of Diversity, on the front line, there is a beastman named Lila and a halfling named Yan. In the middle line, there is a sturdy elf named Daria from the company of magic swordsmen, and on the back line, there is a dwarf named Nadia from the company of archers. Only 2 people can fight effectively on the front lines, yet they cannot inflict fatal wounds on the monsters. The veterans in the middle seem to have withdrawn like old men, and in the back, the dwarves do not even show the desire to fight. With this party, Etana thinks she is the ace. She believes that she will be the one to eliminate the monsters, that this is how things should be. Junk, the sword that is Etana's exclusive weapon, was forged by combining various scrap metals during the creation of her two-handed sword. As she prepares to fight the monsters with her sword, a ridiculous roar echoes through the air. Etana knows that a normal adventurer would lose the will to fight and be paralyzed by the fear of death just because of the roar, but to her, that makes this roar an opportunity. She thinks that ever since she was a kid, she has been training every day with her father, who is far scarier than this monster, so it does not affect her at all. She believes she will be the one to confront him while the other party members are immobilized. Looking directly into the eye of the monster, she activates her skill called Intuition, a skill that alerts its user to imminent danger or when they are facing a stronger opponent. Standing tall on the battlefield, she feels a strange sensation, one related to the first case. Still, it frustrates her that she has to activate an escape skill like this, and it is truly annoying to feel this way in front of a mere monkey. She grips her sword firmly and leaps forward, shouting that she will kill him right now. As Etana charges to take down the monster once and for all, things do not go in her favor as the monster remains unscathed despite her attack and even tries to hurt her by throwing 5 punches back to back with tremendous speed. Seeing this, Etana becomes annoyed. She knows exactly what the monster is trying to do, and it enrages her further. Etana shouts that she will rip off the monster's arms, and just then, someone steps between them and unleashes a fierce magical attack on the monster without warning. It is Layla. Etana tells her to step back, insisting that she wants to fight the monster alone, but Layla refuses, saying she will not leave a monkey with such an ugly face to fight her adorable sister all by herself. To their surprise, the monster suddenly charges at them with terrifying speed and bone-chilling roars. The battle grows more intense, and Yan also leaps into combat, saying her magical swords are begging and whispering to her to finally be used in battle and slay monsters. In response, the monster grows enormous arms out of its back and strikes Yan with such overwhelming force that she is sent flying across the battlefield. However, Yan immediately rises to her feet and declares that her swords have no sense of nobility. Daria steps forward as well, carefully observing the situation and ordering everyone to step back for a while and let the archers subdue the monster for a moment. However, this does not satisfy Etana or her prideful ego. She protests that she has not yet had a satisfying fight with the monster. Daria tries to stop her, urging her to wait, but consumed by rage and determination, Etana uses flame magic and leaps into the air to attack. In the next instant, the monster is engulfed in flames from head to toe, while Etana continues delivering one attack after another. The monster appears to be on the verge of death, and just as she is about to deliver the final blow, something unexpected happens. Someone steals her kill. Etana is clearly displeased and calls out to the one who did it, only for a strange, cute girl to casually greet her. Suddenly, Etana recalls her father's words. Her father once told her that he had nothing left to teach her and that she should learn from others. Etana remembers that she spent 3 years at the Adventurers Academy and that her father told her when she was 10, after losing to the demons because she fought alone, that she had to learn to fight as a team, a lesson that never truly ended. Yet, she thinks all of that was a waste of time. She tried to join Party S, Garden of Diversity, but the results are disastrous as most of the monkey gods' experience points go to the dwarves who landed the final blow. She thinks that if she had fought alone, she would not have been robbed of her victory. Etana has not leveled up in the last 2 weeks because of these insignificant battles. Her father reached level 100 at 18, and now, at 16, her level is 81. As she levels up, gaining levels becomes more difficult. Daria tells her that since her status also increases significantly, there is no need to rush. But to Etana, that is not the problem. She believes she must surpass her father, meaning she needs to get past level 100 within 2 years. That to her is the meaning of her existence. Suddenly, Daria steps forward and scolds Etana for being reckless and putting herself in danger. Etana insists she is perfectly fine, claiming she cannot learn much from Daria since she is too comfortable holding the middle position. Soon Surfin, the leader of the party, steps forward. He tells Daria that Etana cannot be brought down so easily because she is extremely skilled when it comes to both offense and defense. Surfin is a male elf but has a strangely feminine appearance. He thinks he cannot rely on anyone unless he activates his skills, while Etana reflects that her recovery skill is quite good since it allows her to regain the energy she has lost, and she feels she has been granted 2 absurd gifts by the gods for some unknown reason. Daria insists that Surfin should be stricter with Etana and pay closer attention to her actions. But Surfin is a calm and cool leader. He then asks Etana if she will join them for dinner with the guild. Suddenly, Lila grabs Etana and says that bad people with lustful eyes will stare at her sister and she cannot allow that to happen. Daria snaps at Layla, telling her not to say such nonsense in front of everyone. She admits that Aitana has an attractive body, but says that does not mean they can discuss it openly. Lila, being protective, teases and accuses Daria of staring at Aitana, and when Daria claims it is natural for female elves to have large breasts, Lila retorts that it is because she always plays with them. Daria, offended, shouts that it is not that she lacks company, while Layla suddenly covers Aitana's ears and accuses Daria of ruining her sister's purity. Even Surfan is surprised, saying he would not even want the monsters to hear this conversation. He turns away, saying he is counting on Aitana. Aitana thinks that having Surfan as the leader is troublesome for them, and she resolves that she must get stronger to defeat the demons ruling the earth, knowing she does not have much time or many chances left to do so. It is her duty to do what she has been tasked with, though she does not think it is entirely right or sensible. In the guild, Surfan is later seen speaking with someone, saying that their mission is to inform the guild that the monkey god and the members of diversity have been eliminated. He adds that this information is a testament to their prestige and a source of praise for the guild. He then says to leave it for now, to gather at home later, and suggests going to a restaurant afterward. Aitana does not appreciate this hollow display of words. She wonders whether she should do monster combat or arena combat. She thinks to herself that she has been avoiding duels lately, and it seems adventurers do nothing but avoid adventure. She tells Layla not to follow her, but Layla replies that sisters always follow their older sisters and promises to guide Aitana wherever she goes. Aitana thinks that talking to Layla is truly exhausting. In her mind, she tells Layla not to take credit for being the eldest since she has only been alive for 3 months, and she warns her not to act superior because she herself is stronger. Yet, Layla's presence expands the scope of Aitana's missions, and she cannot help it. Aitana thinks it is hard to get rid of Layla because of her animal nature, which she finds irritating, as she does not enjoy being around Layla's loudness. Suddenly, Daria calls out for Aitana. Aitana says she will not make another speech, but Daria replies that it is not about that. As Daria examines Aitana's body, she points out that something specific has gotten bigger, and immediately, Layla steps in, telling her not to stare at her sister like that. Daria clarifies that she was referring to Aitana's dress, saying her old one might not fit her anymore. Aitana says she wants her casual clothes, prompting Daria to angrily ask if she means her wrinkled shorts and tank top. Even Layla does not support this, warning that if Aitana wears that, all the perverts will stare at her. She points out that Yan the midget is already staring at her while Yan is visibly lost in his inappropriate thoughts. Suddenly Nadia the elf arrives and suggests going to the garment store down the street. Though Nadia is female, she makes Aitana a little uncomfortable. Daria says she also wants clothes that repel the male gaze, while Layla insists she wants an outfit matching Aitana's. Daria says they will take Dojiro and Magnus along to carry the luggage, but both refuse immediately, claiming they either have dates or dislike crowded places. Daria accuses them of simply wanting to see Nadia's clothes because they are crazy for her, which they deny, while Nadia hugs them, calling them good friends. Suddenly, a familiar voice greets Layla and Aitana. None of them recognize it at first, but when they turn around, they find Savani, their previous classmate from the Adventurers Academy, standing behind them. Layla realizes it is the noble brat, though Aitana cannot recall much. Still, they know he is the newcomer, and Savani apologizes, saying he wanted to introduce himself at the dinner table, which is why he had not done so earlier. Daria thinks Savani is a polite person. Surfan greets Savani as well, but for some reason, Aitana finds the whole thing irritating. She glances at the door, thinking she needs to get stronger and reach level 100, and that she cannot waste her time like this. All of a sudden, Tint enters the guild, unnoticed by everyone. At that moment, Aitana's intuition skill activates, and she feels as though electricity is surging through her body. It is the same feeling she gets when she faces an extremely strong opponent, and as her gaze sweeps across the crowd, she spots Tint and Esther smiling at each other. She does not know who he is, but her gaze locks onto him. Aitana stares hard at Tint, and Layla asks if anything is wrong. Savant asks her if she is interested in that man, and she asks if he knows him. Savant says it is Tint, his former teammate who left for some reason, and is now hunting slimes and goblins on solo quests. Surfan says that such a special person would have made a good member of his team, and Daria goes on to tell Aitana how Tint is much more famous than her. Aitana asks if he is really that strong, but Daria says that Tint is known as the god's enemy, and has been on level 0 for a very long time. Daria says she can feel how bad Tint must feel about himself, while she praises Savant for taking such a person into his team. Savant says it is his job to serve the weak people. However, Aitana is shocked, as she does not understand why they are calling Tint a level 0, when she can clearly sense the horrifying energy coming from him, far superior to the amount of energy her father had when he was fighting against the demons. Savant tries inviting Aitana to his home for dinner, but Aitana ignores him and walks away, saying she wants to go where Tint will go, while Layla follows her. Later, Tint asks Esther if she really wants to accompany him on his quest, and she says yes with a cute smile. Ever since the goblin incident, Esther stays home when Tint goes on goblin missions. She waits for him and knits while he is mostly worried about leaving her alone at home, all by herself. Suddenly, Esther puts a cloth around Tint and tells him that it is a hand-knit scarf, and Tint likes it as well since it is pretty warm for the season. Tint starts to think how Esther must be having a lot of fun since she is on vacation, but then all of a sudden someone calls his name and tells him to stop immediately. As Tint turns around, he finds a top-tier adventurer walking toward him. It is Aitana, and she gets close and asks what he is. Tint is confused by this question and does not understand how to answer. He says that he is just an adventurer, but to his surprise, Aitana says she knows how strong he is. Tint cannot believe it and fears that his secret has been exposed. However, Tint knows that he has not hunted abnormal numbers of goblins on his quest, so that cannot give away his real powers. He is sure that he has not done anything stupid to give away his real stats, nor has he told anyone else. Aitana says that it is her intuition that tells her about him, and now Tint feels relaxed as she does not have any solid proof to support her claim. Tint tells her that her intuition is incorrect, and just as he is about to leave, she tells him to show his blessing books. Layla tries to stop Aitana, saying it cannot be shown to others as that book contains personal information. Aitana acts arrogantly, insisting on seeing Tint's stats, and as she gets super close to Tint, she presses her chest against his body, saying there should not be any problem if he is really level 0. Suddenly, Tint becomes nervous as he realizes that Esther is staring at him intensely, and when he looks at her face, she tells him to show his stats to Aitana. Even though Tint was not sure, now that Esther is allowing it herself, he has no problem with it. As Tint opens his stats book, he gives it to Aitana, and upon taking a look, she finds out that Tint is literally at level 0. Even Tint is shocked as he did not expect this, and seeing this, Layla grabs Aitana and leaves while apologizing to Tint for such rudeness. As they leave, Esther tells Tint not to worry, saying his real level is still the same, and that she played a trick to change the stats of the book to make it seem that Tint is on level 0, and since she works as a goddess, it is like a piece of cake for her. However, Tint now decides to be more careful as he thinks Aitana will be suspicious of him if she finds out about him killing 50 goblins or defeating Trisso in a knife-throwing competition. In the next scene, Tint and Esther are seen walking across the woods. Tint knows that Aitana and Layla are following him, and he thinks to himself that he would have never found out about this if he were truly at level 0. He thinks it would be better not to let Esther know that they are being followed, and he also does not want Aitana to know that he is aware of her presence. All of a sudden, Esther runs into some naked goblins. Esther starts to cry and runs toward Tint, saying she does not want to be caught by them. Tint thinks it is a good reaction as no one would doubt that she is a goddess. Tint plans to take advantage of this situation and cries out, saying he cannot do anything as he is also afraid. Esther asks what he is talking about and recalls him defeating 59 goblins by himself, and Tint says that it was because a huge rock came out of nowhere, or else he would not have been able to defeat even a single goblin by himself. Tint needs to find a solution immediately. He steps forward and hugs Esther, telling her to keep up the act as 2 people are following them. He tells her that he is sorry for making her feel insecure, but if it is about protecting Esther from any danger, then he is willing to do anything, even fight with his life on the line. Esther is surprised, her eyes start to sparkle like hearts, while Tint thinks that she is putting on a really great act. Tint draws his sword and stands against the goblins, daring them to attack him. Meanwhile, Aitana watches him carefully from the bushes, wondering what a level 0 person would do against a duo of violent goblins. Standing against the goblins, Tint is ready to fight them while pretending to be a level 0 adventurer. As he steps forward, a goblin attacks him, but he manages to dodge the attack with ease. He dodges another attack, and in the back, Esther acts as if it is their first time seeing real combat, which makes Tint happy as he thinks she is acting really well. The goblins continue to attack Tint, throwing punches back and forth, but he keeps dodging, and after a few moments, he decides to strike back. With a single hit, Tint defeats one of the goblins, and Esther starts cheering for him like a little kid. She begins jumping and celebrating, and Tint smiles, thinking about what a cute little bottom-tier party of adventurers they are. The second goblin, now enraged, steps forward and throws a powerful punch at Tint, but his armor absorbs the blow. Tint pretends to be hurt, acting as though he took heavy damage, but in truth, he does not feel a thing thanks to his super durable body. Deciding to end the fight, Tint drives his blade through the goblin's torso, killing it. As the goblin falls, Esther runs into Tint's arms and hugs him while crying. Tint tells her that she is getting blood on her clothes, but she replies that she does not care, saying she was only worried about him. Tint praises Esther's acting skills in his mind, thinking that the two following them probably feel the same. Lila, however, cannot understand why they are celebrating so much after defeating just 2 goblins. She tells Etana that she already knew Tint was weak, but Etana is convinced that Tint is only pretending to be weak to throw them off. Layla says that Tint even showed them his stats, but Etana argues that stats can be faked through magic. She insists that she is sure Tint is an extremely strong person who is just hiding his true strength. Lila thinks Etana is losing her mind and tells her she must just be having a bad day, but Etana continues to argue, claiming she is certain about Tint's power. Etana feels as if she has been struck by lightning, and Layla, hearing her words, teases her by asking if she is experiencing love at first sight, which confuses Etana. Lila explains what love at first sight means, but Etana still does not grasp the concept and wonders why anyone would fall for someone just by looking at them. Layla smiles, saying she feels much better now, and suggests they go shopping, also advising Etana to try making some friends since having friends is a good thing. Etana disagrees, claiming that will only make her weaker, but Lila explains that friendship builds connections that will make her stronger. All of a sudden, a creepy, dark energy fills the atmosphere, and Etana immediately senses it. She tells Layla to go back and then slides down the hill, warning her not to follow. Drawing her sword, Etana runs into the woods, thinking about the strange feeling she just sensed. It is not like the presence of a powerful being, but it is so terrifying that even her heart feels like it is being gripped. She thinks to herself that whenever she senses danger, it usually means an enemy has directed an intention to attack her. In other words, there is a high chance the enemy has already recognized her. That means there is another monster in this forest besides Tint, and she wonders if it is targeting her. She recalls her father's words telling her to always prioritize her own life. A life and death struggle is out of the question. If she dies, she cannot grow stronger. However, records show that fighting in a life and death struggle is far more effective for gaining experience than fighting casually. In fact, her father engaged in life and death battles many times when he was young and reached level 100 by the time he was 18. If she does not push her limits through 1 or 2 life and death struggles, she will never catch up to her father. She decides to break the promise she made to prioritize her life. She arrives at a secluded area and tells herself that this place is perfect because no one will disturb her, and it can even act as a barrier to protect her from long-range attacks. The eerie feeling strikes again, stronger this time, and the sense of danger grows clearer. It seems there really is a terrifying monster approaching with the intent to attack. She wonders where it is hiding and whether it has a way to strike from a distance. Could it use bow magic like Nadia? Etana immediately activates her instinct skill, thinking that if she continues to feel this electric current running through her, it will create an opening. From this point on, she has to rely entirely on instinct. Suddenly, a voice praises her looks, and without thinking, Etana swings her sword toward the direction of the voice. Someone is behind her, dodging her attack effortlessly, and tells her how slow she is. Etana raises her head and finds a female elf standing in front of her with a creepy smile. She wonders if it is a demon, and though she tries to cast magic to attack, she fails. The enemy is so overwhelmingly strong that she just stands there smiling, radiating an oppressive aura. Etana becomes certain that this is indeed a demon. What surprises her most is when she notices the enemy's weapon. She is shocked to see that it belongs to her father, and as the demon stares directly into her soul, Etana feels a chill run through her entire body. In the past, The story of the demon girl unfolds as she sits in her father's lap, listening to him speak of how he regretted achieving everything in his life. As a child, she could not truly understand his words, but she thought that if one possessed everything, what could possibly stop them from living a good life? When Hizuki's father died, she became the head of the prestigious Tantor family of the demon realm. Power flowed to her as naturally as breath, enough to match her new title, and she could proudly say she had gained everything just as her father had before her. Yet, despite her strength and position, Hizuki found it all unbearably boring. One day, a demon appeared before her, bowing low and begging for her help and forgiveness. He was one of those who had once dared to defy her, and though she did not care for his plight, she thought it might be entertaining to hear him out and summoned him to her castle. She stared down at him, cold and detached, reminding him that she was the one offering help at this moment. The demon fell deeper into desperation, pleading for the life of his daughter, but Hizuki, amused, used her magic to force him to absorb his dying daughter's life energy. The father survived by draining her remaining strength, while the daughter was left on the brink of death. Hizuki watched with fascination, wondering whether she would see anger, hatred, or despair first as father and daughter faced this grim choice. The daughter, clinging to what little strength she had, wept as she was carried on her father's back, telling him it was fine, that for her father she would do anything, that her own life no longer mattered. The father, shaking with grief, told her not to speak such foolish words, saying that if he lost her, he could not go on living. Through tears, the daughter called him the foolish one, saying he was too important, that he had to survive no matter what for the sake of the demon realm. Their cries and pleas filled the hall until even Hizuki, sitting on her throne, felt something stir within her. She finally let out a sigh, admitting to herself that she had witnessed a beautiful family bond. Because of that rare moment of sincerity, she decided to lend them her help. As Hizumi used her powers, she eased the daughter out of her unbearable pain. The demon father immediately embraced his beloved daughter with tears of happiness. But a second later, the daughter said she felt as if she had bumped into something. The next moment, she turned into something strange, a hideous monster, and began to melt while screaming in immense pain, begging for help. Seeing this, the father lost all composure and threatened to kill Hizumi, demanding to know what she had done to his daughter. The next moment, Hizumi's pet beast devoured the father as if he were a delicious treat. One day, Hizumi looked into a mirror and saw her own face staring back at her, and on that day, she finally understood her father's words. She realized that she, too, would end up like her boring father one day and wondered if she should do something about her own boredom. She began blaming those around her for such a miserable life, thinking about how her people never stood against her and always died after begging for mercy, which only made her even more bored, finding them predictable and unentertaining. Suddenly, she remembered something. Now that she thought about it, around 50 years ago, a human had come to this castle. He had been brave enough to defy all the other demons, using strange fire magic to confront her, and had actually managed to entertain her younger, sharper self. That was why she had granted him mercy, listening to his pleas and letting him escape instead of killing him. She thought he had called himself a hero or something like that. She said she could not recall the exact name, but did remember cutting off his arm to take his sword. Using that sword would allow her to perform a summoning spell and bring him back to this castle to amuse her. The only problem was that she did not remember where she had placed the sword. Then she looked at a certain sword and said that this was the sword she had used to chop off his arm. She could not recall the name, but that day felt just like yesterday. Suddenly, she remembered something and said that this could be a problem. The average lifespan of a human was around 70 years. Right, he had been from that race called humans, had he not? The man was either already dead or, if alive, he was probably an old man by now. If it was his child, there was a good chance they could use the same fire magic. Hizumi wondered if the man was out of the picture. Then what about his child? Looking at the sword, she said there was still blood on it from when she had cut off his arm. With summoning magic, one could only call the original if they had blood present. But if she could smell and taste that blood, she could track down his offspring. They must have inherited his bravery and fire magic. She said that if that were the case, it should be entertaining enough. For fun, she decided to kill the man's kin with his own sword to give him a shock, even if he was already dead. However, Hizumi soon realized how foolish she was being and wondered how she was supposed to meet that man's child, for she knew that the human world was filled with the presence of the god she hated most. She thought of herself as a noble being who could not get close to such a stench. Hizumi considered summoning the father to lure the child, but somehow did not feel truly excited by the idea. Suddenly, her maid Olkia read her mind and told her that she did not have to go through so much trouble. Looking at her maid, Hizumi thought that it would be a great idea to have a fight with her, but decided she did not want to keep losing good maids. Olkia said she had a report from the lower-ranking demon stating that the god's barrier was weakening at the moment. Hizumi asked if that meant the corruption was being purified, and Olkia replied that it appeared so before suggesting that since Hizumi had been out of shape lately, she should take a walk to check it out. Hizumi thought to herself that the human world was a dump of garbage, and if the hero's child turned out to be a disappointment, she could always take out her frustration on humanity. To wipe out a massive amount of trash all at once would surely be satisfying. Then she considered sparing the child and making them clean up the bodies left behind. Hizumi reflected that humans were said to be such inferior creatures that they could not survive alone, and she thought again that she could spare the child and make them clean the bodies. She also believed they seemed to have a strong sense of camaraderie, so it might be quite the sight. She told Olkia that it was not a bad idea and ordered her to prepare a change of clothes. Olkia replied as she wished, calling Hizumi her lady. Hizumi then thought to herself that this new toy would be entertaining, wondering if the man's child would be able to amuse her back into the human realm. As Hizumi stood there, Aitana saw her father's sword in Hizumi's hands. It bore the marks of having slain various kinds of demons. It was the real deal, not a replica, the genuine hero's sword. Aitana knew that 50 years ago her father had received orders from the emperor to invade the demon realm, and he had headed there with the hero's sword. After losing the sword and one arm, he had barely returned alive. She knew this was not the time for leisurely thoughts with the enemy standing before her, but she could not help but ask as she faced the demon if this was truly the one who had fought against her father, against the hero Bernhard. She called the demon Hizumi, and he smiled as though remembering and acknowledged that it had indeed been the name of the man he once fought. Anger flared within Aitana as she recalled how her father never forgot that fight and how he had called Hizumi's name every night, tormented by nightmares. Hizumi's eyes narrowed as he realized she was Bernhard's daughter, and she demanded what difference that made. Hizumi explained that he had come there to see her, and that when he remembered her father's pathetic pleas for mercy, a long-buried guilt began to surface. And as a twisted form of apology, he thought to give Bernhard's daughter a chance at revenge. Hizumi stood calmly and told her to make her move freely, and that he would not defend himself. Aitana steeled her mind and refused to take the bait, recalling all the days of training with her father and activating her instinct skill, while thinking that this opponent might be stronger than her father, and that if she did not use her full strength, she would be finished. Hizumi appeared disappointed as he watched her hesitate, but Aitana shouted within herself that she could not keep calm against someone who had toyed with her father. Hizumi taunted her and asked if she was afraid, but Aitana crushed the thought, remembering her father's words that she must not fight demons until he gave permission, and the realization struck her that she had come here even though it broke that promise. The confusion twisted inside her as she wondered if she was truly planning to run away. At that moment, another figure arrived, and Hizumi turned his gaze toward the newcomer, accusing Aitana of stalling until this fool appeared. It was Layla, and as she landed with a thud, she attacked Hizumi without warning while Aitana rushed forward desperately, trying to stop her.